Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I have my co-host, Jackson Bezdek, with me here once again. And Jackson, it's rivalry week, baby. It's rivalry week. The
Good.
Missouri Tigers coming into town on Saturday, and we'll be previewing that matchup with our guest, Jaden Lewis, later. But Kansas also played a game on Tuesday against UMKC, and we'll have to go over that as well. So without further ado, let's get it going. Let's get into it. Episode 9 of The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast. Well, all right, Jackson. Kansas wins 88-69 against Kansas City, UMKC, inside Allen Fieldhouse. The Jayhawks were 26.5 pregame favorites via BetMGM. And once again, the Jayhawks did not cover. And this game really was kind of eerily similar to that Eastern Illinois game. Even though Kansas won that game by 8 points and this one by 19, it was rather close there for some times, Jackson.
Yeah, it definitely didn't feel like a 20-point victory. I mean, especially when you're playing a team like UMKC, if you're going to win by 20, it needs to be you're up 33 and then they hit some late threes with a couple minutes left with the bench warmers in. Not the exact inverse of that, where Kansas had to go on a run in the last 4 minutes because the game had gotten too close in the second half.
The Kansas starters started off this game on a 22-8 run. Kevin McCullough had 14 points in that start, which was pretty incredible. And then, the bench comes in around that 12-minute mark like they did against UConn and didn't really do the best. In that first half, Kansas had 8 bench points, 3 from Timberlake and 5 from Parker Brown, and didn't really have anything else. Like, really the only thing in that first half was kind of that Kevin McCullough performance, and the defensive intensity at times was pretty good. Kansas holds on to a 44-30 lead at halftime. All in all, not a terrible first half, but then Kansas comes out real flat offensively in the second half, had only 11 points in the first 8 minutes. UMKC cuts the lead to 10 points at 55-45 with 12:34 to play. And this happened via a 12-4 UMKC run, which they scored 10 points in like literally 45 seconds. Kansas, though, they respond to that run with a 16-4 run of their own. It's 71-49. You think it should be game. Let's bring in the bench. Let's not sweat about it. No, UMKC, they go on one last run, an 18-4 run to bring the game back within 8 points at the under 4 timeout. But KU finished really, really strong at that under 4, outscored UMKC 13-2 down the stretch. It was really a true game of runs. But Jackson, what did we just kind of make of this overall?
Overall, I actually think Kansas is shooting the 3 ball really well. Aside from if you take out Nick Timberlake, Kansas was essentially 50% from behind the arc last night. And the point I make in that is that I now finally have that confidence of when McCullough shoots or even Furphy shoots. When they shoot it, I feel like it's going in. So offensively, I think that's definitely a plus going forwards. Defensively, I mean, that 18-4 run was just it was weird. It was odd. I didn't expect it. You're watching the game, like you said, Kansas is up 20, time to, pedal down. Let's get the bench guys in, 6-7 minutes left. It was like I was surprised. UMKC starts hitting shots and then you kind of look up, oh shoot, we're only up 8. Now we got to repress the gas pedal again.
UMKC did not give up at all in this game, and they kept it close all the way. But the one guy for Kansas who didn't really allow any BS to happen in this game was Kevin McCullough. I mean, man, he played like an All-American again last night. Had his career high in points of 25 points, and kind of crazy stat that I saw is coming into this season. Excuse the alarms I got going on outside, but coming into this season, Kevin McCullough had 3 career 20-point games. He now has 5 this year already. I mean, he's just been incredible.
Well, I mean, take a look at this. His career averages are 11, 5, and 2. That's about what we saw out of Kevin McCullough last year, 45% from the field. He's doubled his points per game this year. It is now at 19. He's at 7 rebounds a game. He's at 5 assists per game, shooting 40% from 3. Like you said, each game that Kansas has had some BS go down, he has been the guy every single time to turn the shit back around. He's been such a beast for Kansas this year. It's still really early in the season, and there's still a lot of conference games to go, but I mean, it's like we've been talking about all year. Everybody's been saying it. It's his Ochai year. It's his J. Will year. It might be time to start seriously thinking about putting Kevin maybe even like at that exact tier as those guys.
He's a first team All-American right now to me.
That's
Like,
the tier right there.
Simply is. If I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Tristan Newton is obviously there. He's probably the best guard in the country right now. Showed Kansas that. Terrence Shannon, I think, is a first team All-American right now. That dude is
so good against
Florida. And then I got Kevin McCullough, Zach Edey, Hunter Dickinson. I mean, It may be crazy to say that Kansas has 2 All-American players, and honestly, I don't know the last time that has happened in college basketball, 1 team with 2 All-Americans, but I would be absolutely shocked at the end of this season if Kevin McCullough is in the second team or third team All-American, because he's playing that well right now, and I think he will continue that this season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the only question is, can he do it for the whole season? We've seen him do it over the past week against really good teams, against not really good teams. It doesn't matter who's on the floor. Kevin McCullough thinks he's the best guy out there.
He's just doing everything well, and I don't know about you, Jackson, but he's definitely kind of surpassed my expectations. And
100%.
The coaching staff, they were talking Kevin McCullough up all offseason and, what he was going to be. And they thought that he was a monster. And I still think that they probably surprised the coaching staff a little bit with how well Kevin McCullough has played. But I think he's also playing himself into a first-round draft pick. I looked at some mocks today, and everybody kind of has him in that late first round, early second rounds right now. But I think it's very possible that he plays himself into that like 15 to 22 range where Christian Braun was selected. Like he's been incredible. He's been absolutely incredible.
I think he's a top 20 pick straight up. And this is a year where there's not a lot of talent going into the draft to where you get a team who's picking at 18 or 19. We've seen this over the course of the past few years. Christian Braun being an example of one of them. Teams are, especially good teams, are okay drafting 4th, 5th year guys who know how to play. And that's why I think Kevin's getting all this buzz because like the Nuggets again.
He's doing in the league. Like he's an incredible role player for the Nuggets.
Like what if, the Bucks are sitting at 24 and they're like, man, what if we had Kevin McCullough to our bench unit? Like that's a real tangible thing that they would want to do rather than take an 18-year-old, that they have to develop for 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing with Kevin is it's just how confident he's playing. Coach Self after the game said that he thinks he's a different player this year just because of that confidence and just his ability to score the ball. Self mentioned that, he hasn't really expanded his game that much like in other areas, defensively, rebounding. He's always been that guy, but this offensive jump, Self even said it is pretty crazy. And he's shooting the ball well. He's posting guys up. He's doing absolutely everything for this Kansas team. And Bill Self says it right here. I'm sold. I think he's a terrific player.
I'm sold, as if he wasn't sold when he took him away from Texas Tech.
As if he didn't recruit him out of the transfer portal to be a beast at Kansas.
I think that his shooting is not. He is shooting 40% from 3. He was 28% last year. A 12% jump is
that just looks so much smoother, Jackson.
And there's volume with it too. He's hitting 2 a game. It's not like he's 4 for 10 right now. Like no, he's hitting 2 a game. He's putting shots up. He's been crazy efficient so far.
Another guy who's been crazy efficient, was crazy efficient again last night, is KJ Adams. Same thing as Kevin. Just an incredible performance last night. Back-to-back 18-point games now. He had 18, 7, and 6 assists last night. Watching the game, I didn't even realize that he filled up the stat sheet that much, but look at the box score. He's got 18, 7, and 6. So really what that tells me is, we talked about how Self kind of criticized KJ Adams a couple episodes ago before the UConn game, how he's not really being a great defensive rebounder. KJ Adams has taken that challenge. He's now putting his butt on people and going to get rebounds.
Yep. The thing that I've taken from his game is the assists number isn't a fluke. From watching these games, he's been a very, very good and willing passer.
Yep.
I mean, especially, his game is pretty much restricted to 12 feet and in. So when he's not at that point, he's looking to facilitate. He's never seen himself as like a 4 or a 5. Like, he's never seen himself as a big. He sees himself kind of as just like a kind of tall guard who kind of works inside the paint. And he's been a great facilitator. So that 6 assist number, I don't know how many times he'll get 6 a game, but it's not a fluke that, he got that money. And especially if Kansas continues to shoot 40% from 3 every game, he's going to keep getting them.
The assists are great, but 18 points while shooting 70+% from the field, you'll take that every day too. And kind of Bill Self mentioned this last night. UMKC played Hunter Dickinson how a lot of teams are going to play Hunter Dickinson. They're going to be very physical. They're going to try to push him out. They're not going to let Hunter Dickinson just catch the ball in the post and score over people. Teams aren't going to let that happen. So whenever teams take that away, KJ Adams has been the guy this year to kind of score on the inside. And Bill Self quote from last night, the way they played Hunter tonight, he needed to score because, it's a good strategy to do that to Hunter. But if teams realize that, oh no, we pressure Hunter and now we got this guy dunking all over us, who knows what teams are going to do then?
I tried to warn him last episode. You can't sag off KJ Adams. Just because he can't shoot doesn't mean you guard him 10 feet back. You are giving him a running start to put you on a poster. Stop doing that, teams. If freaking Missouri does that on Saturday, I'm going to lose my mind on Monday's episode about what is going on. Why is this still happening? KJ's going to average 20 a game if teams continue to guard him like this.
Yeah, seriously. That UMKC, I don't really think they sagged it as much as UConn did. Like UConn literally, like I said, Caravan was literally looking at and finding his spot, like to be in the paint. But yeah, I agree. Teams are going to get burned this season if they try to do that. Now it's time to talk about a couple of freshmen who I thought played really well last night. It was pretty good to see. You got Johnny Furphy and Marco Jackson is who we're going to talk about first. Furphy, 10 points last night, 4 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3 with a couple of rebounds. Bill Self, after the game, said that Furphy, he looked like a player, especially there in that second half.
I still think Furphy's a little hurt, and not like he's not injured per se, but I don't think he's 100% because there is no way that Bill Self recruited a guy who looks that slow on defense consistently without him being 100%. Like, I definitely think like there's definitely a step for both of these guys to take still. And I think a lot of Johnny's has to do with him just getting healthy. I think I'm post Christmas break. He needs to be getting 20 minutes a game. He is that good of an offensive player.
I think Bill wants that too eventually.
Yeah. He's 12 of 30 from 3 this year. That's a sample size. Like, that's real. He's a good shooter. A lot of those makes have been at home, I do want to say, but regardless, I need to see Johnny Furphy be more involved in this offense.
And now Marco Jackson, and another guy to talk about. The box score doesn't really jump at you from last night. 5 points, 3 assists, 3 fouls, 2 turnovers. But like all in all, I think this was kind of Marco's one of his best games. I mean, he was aggressive offensively. He kind of was moving well, attacking the rim, kind of hunting a little bit more for his shot. If just one of those 3-pointers, Jackson, could fall and give Marco Jackson some confidence, for God's sake, but still hasn't been able to hit those at a high percentage. What did you make of Marco last night, Jackson? Just kind of the season so far for Marco.
Marco, he's been fine. Unfortunately, that's not what Kansas is looking for. That's not why Kansas recruited him. That's not why he was a lottery pick coming into the season on the mock drafts. Elmarko Jackson is reminding me way too much of Quentin Grimes right now. And
Don't say
as
that name.
I know, it's sad.
Don't say that name.
So the fact that we have to even bring this up is depressing. But through Quentin Grimes' first 9 games, he'd scored in double figures 3 times. Marco Jackson has not done so yet. So for as much hate as Quentin Grimes got back in the day, just like he was a bust of a recruit. Like he really was. Elmarko is not that yet. There's still a lot of room for him to grow.
I think
But
Elmarko has been really good defensively and passing the ball for the most part for Kansas this year. So I don't know if Quentin came in to be a scorer, and I don't know if Elmarko that's really like Bill would want him to be, but I don't know if that's what he is at this moment.
That's if he's not, it's fine. But that's how he was advertised to us. This electric playmaker who's going to come in and make this Kansas offense move at 100 miles an hour. Kansas is barely top 100 in tempo, which is fine. You know, you're top 30 in offense, run your offense how you want to run it, but it's not moving through Marco Jackson whatsoever. So in terms of how they were advertised to the Kansas fan base, there is a lot of similarities in those two guys. I think that Elmarko's ceiling is exponentially higher, however, just in terms of raw athleticism and the fact that he's new to the game. Just so many different factors play into this of why he just needs some time. He needs time.
Just remember the preseason conversations that we had with players and Coach Self, everybody. Like Parker Brown said that he's going to be the person that carries him to the mountaintop. And, it's a lot of pressure to put on an 18-year-old kid. But he sees him as that, and Bill Self saw him as the X factor too. So, it's so early still.
Yeah.
He has so much time to find that. I don't know if he will exactly be, he's not going to be the AAU Elmarko Jackson with the ball in his hands all the time.
Have to accept
scoring all the time, being the best player on the court. I don't think that's going to be him right now this season, but he could definitely improve and become maybe a double figure guy for Kansas because, like you said, hasn't scored in double figures this year.
Yep. It's okay to admit that he might not be the X factor. Like maybe we were all way too excited. We saw the athleticism. Okay, Kevin McCullough's probably the X factor of this.
It's the mock draft people that screwed us, Jackson. They're putting him in that lottery.
What they do to me.
We're thinking too much about it.
Man, I got so excited for no reason. No, he will be that someday. It's just not this year. It's not this year. He is literally like not old enough in his basketball life to be given this much responsibility.
For sure. Another couple guys from that 5 to 9 for Kansas that we want to talk about now is first Parker Brown, and then we'll get to Timberlake here in a second. Parker Brown, I mean, I kind of noticed like we have not been talking about him at all on this podcast. And really it's just because like he kind of just comes in and does his job. There's not much to talk about. And I've had literally no problems with Parker this year. Bill Self said at media, I believe it was before the UMKC game, that Parker's been, besides that top 4, he's been the most consistent guy out there. And, KU doesn't need him to play a lot of minutes. Like Hunter Dickinson is going to play 32 a game, and in big games, he's going to play probably 35 to 40. So it's not like Kansas is asking a lot about Parker Brown, but I think he's been really, really effective while he's been out there.
I mean, dude, I think Hunter might get ejected again this year. So like multiple times. So Parker Brown may need to be ready to play some significant minutes at some point. Because I mean,
if you guys don't know what we're referencing, Hunter Dickinson got a flagrant for just absolutely shoving over UMKC yesterday. I was honestly surprised he didn't get kicked out of the game for that. And they were talking about it at the table for so long that I thought that he was probably about to get ejected, but he did not. Hunter Dickinson did not get ejected, and he ended up finishing with 14 points and 12 rebounds. But yeah, Parker Brown, who knows, man? Foul trouble.
And this is a revenge game for him this weekend, right? He used to play at Missouri. We know the Browns' family history between Kansas and Missouri.
Parker's a former walk-on there, so
it's a big game for him. I would want to say you might get 8-3. He might do it. I don't know. You might see it.
Oh boy, 8-3. That's killer. All right, it's time to talk some Timberlake now. Nick Timberlake, 1 of 5 from the field last night. He hits his first 3, but not anything going after. I mean, man, I just don't even know really what to think with this guy anymore, what to kind of talk about. Really, my thing is right now is I don't know if he was ever meant to be like a guy on this team, if that makes sense. I mean, if Arterio Morris is still on the Kansas roster, like, does Nick play more than like 8 to 10 minutes a game, just
A million
rotation wise?
times.
Like,
Million
I
times.
don't really know. So I don't know. I think Nick kind of just had a little bit more pressure on him than like leading up to the season after the Arterio thing happened than he did whenever he committed here. And that might be a thing, but I don't know, Jackson. What do you think of Timberlake right now? How do we get this guy going?
You might be onto something because he was really good in those games in Costa Rica or Puerto Rico or wherever the hell we were this summer. He was really good in those games, and he's a good basketball player. But through 9 games this season, he's been terrible. He's shooting 27% from three, and for a shooter, that's bad. That's very, very bad.
Like at least
I
a 35% clip would be nice, but he's shooting 33.3% from the field, averaging 3.6 points and 1.6 rebounds.
I when he checks in, I get sad. Straight up. I'm like, oh, so now I'm only excited to watch 4 players on the court. Like, that's honestly how I feel when Timberlake checks in. He's not bringing anything to the table except for missed threes. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like super harsh, but dude, this has been brutal so far.
I really don't know like what Kansas can do to get him going, what Bill Self needs to do to get him going. But yeah, it's not the best situation, and I don't think that Kansas wants to go into March Madness with, okay, we got 5 guys, with one of them being a true freshman that hasn't really reached his potential yet, and then we got Johnny Furphy off the bench. Like
8 minutes of Parker Brown.
that is Kansas right now. So yeah, Timberlake really needs to get going. A little bit to close now. Kind of want to talk some defense. Defense against UMKC, we won't really dive into it that much, but they were okay in the first half, not great in the second half. And we keep talking about this defense, Jackson. What needs to improve? Hunter Dickinson, he needs to get better in ball screens. Our guards need to stop just getting driven right by. All of this, and you look up, Kansas is 6th in KenPom in defensive efficiency. They're averaging 70.5 points given up to Tennessee, Marquette, UConn, and Kentucky. Like, this team has been pretty good defensively via the numbers, and you're telling me that Bill Self doesn't think they're where they need to be, and that they're still not doing the best? I mean, what do you make of this, Jax?
Let me tell you why, Sam. It's because when we watch Kansas and we look at their defense, we are mentally comparing them to past Kansas defenses. We don't think while we're watching Kansas defense, like, oh, yeah, they're way better than Kennesaw State on defense. Yeah, Middle Tennessee is, like, I don't care how the rest of the country is defensively. I don't care about
spoiled. We've been
top
spoiled.
10, top 15. Right. Like, I am comparing it to the 2008 championship team, the 2012 Final Four team, the 2022 national championship team. I'm comparing the defense.
2019-20 team was elite defensively too.
Lockdown
for that
would have been national champs. Like that's what we're comparing it to. So when we look up, we're like, wait, we're a top 10 defensive team in the country. Like, yeah, but we might not be a top 5 defensive Bill Self team in the past decade. So we're all pissed off about it.
Kansas is number 9 in the nation in field goal percentage defense, 36.7%. Number 15 in least fouls per game. Kansas just simply doesn't foul, under 14 a game there. Number 10 in defensive rebounds per game. Top 60 in scoring defense, and only allowing teams to 29.7% shooting from the three. And this is also, Kansas is doing all this while not creating a ton of havoc or steals. They're 140th in steals per game and 262 in turnovers forced. So Kansas isn't creating a lot of havoc, which I think as the season goes on with guys like Kevin McCullough, DeJuan Harris, they'll do. And they're still doing this defensively. So I guess we need to kind of relax a little bit on this Kansas team and the defensive end.
I don't. I want teams to not score 60 ever. How about that?
Fair enough, but Kansas allowing an average of 70.5 to those four really good teams that we played. Like, if Kansas can do that in March Madness, like, I don't
No, that's how you win in
Kansas
March.
losing a game. If you're going to hold teams to this team offensively with how good they are, if you're going to hold teams to 70 or under 70, that's pretty damn good. Now I want to talk about kind of a little bit of those offensive stats now. Kansas is doing some pretty crazy things offensively right now. They're number one in field goal percentage, number 3 in effective field goal percentage, number 1 in total assists and assists per game. And yet we've been complaining about this shooting problem that we may or may not have. What do you make of Kansas's offense so far this season? Pretty good when it comes to shooting.
I don't think we have a shooting problem. I think what you and I talked about at the beginning of the year was the lack of volume that we were seeing. And that's still the case, but I think that's why it's holding the percentages up higher. And I think that's okay. You know, if you're running your offense through Hunter Dickinson and McCullough wants to work inside too, that if all you got to do is be efficient, like if you're going to only shoot 17 threes a game, it's okay if you're only making 6 or 7 a game. You know, that's still at a really high clip. So, and the assist numbers, that if you watch Kansas for 10 minutes, you won't be surprised by that. The best passing team in the country. We've said it all year. It's not even close anymore at this point, I don't think. They assist on damn near every shot they make, it feels like, when you're watching.
Yeah, for sure. And DeJuan Harris, he's number 1 in total assists in the nation, number 5 in per game. So he's been really good. And Kevin McCullough is also top 50 in assists per game, I believe, this year. So yeah, Kansas doing a great job sharing the ball. A couple more stats that I thought were pretty interesting. Hunter Dickinson leading the nation in total rebounds. He's number 2 in rebounds per game at 12.2. Hunter Dickinson also top 40 in points per game at 20.1. And then you got KJ Adams, number 5 in the nation in field goal percentage at 70.6%, which is pretty crazy. And Hunter Dickinson ain't too far behind at number 31 with 63.5%. Getting that out of your 4-5, sheesh, that's pretty dang good.
The funniest Kansas stat over the past 5 years is that their 2 best shooters percentage-wise are KJ Adams and Doak. So that's pretty funny to think about. But I don't think KJ is going to be seeing this many open looks as the season progresses. But that's I mean, you would have never expected him to be anywhere near 70% from the field. I mean, I would have just thought he was like 3 for 4 with 3 dunks every single game if you would have told me that. But it's not. He's
doing
really
it with push shots. Like,
he's shot, man. It's the best shot.
Bag is expanding, Jackson. It's expanding.
The push shots is essentially this generation's skyhook for KJ, man. It's unstoppable. You can't guard it.
All right, that's gonna wrap up our Kansas discussion with UMKC. Now it's time to focus on Missouri. Missouri coming up. Kansas announced that it is retiring Thomas Robinson's number 0 at halftime for this Missouri game. Of course, Robinson, consensus first-team All-American in 2012, led Kansas to the NCAA title game, and he set the Kansas single-season double-doubles record with 27. He's a proud member of my Bill Self all-time starting 5 team, which is 20 times better than yours. So it's good to see Thomas Robinson going up in the rafters. You excited for it, Jackson?
I'm just so thrilled that it's against Missouri. It's so poetic. Some of his, I mean, obviously the last game, the block, that's iconic. But even in other times he played Missouri, he always had such a good game against them. One of the games that we won in Columbia, he came off the bench and had 18 and 14 or something crazy like that. Like he always played Missouri so well. Absolute gamer. One of those guys that I remember, he had an and one in that Missouri game to cut it to 1 with like 20 seconds left. And he goes to shoot a free throw. My 9-year-old ass is freaking out because he's 62% from the line on the year. He's one of those guys where in that moment, percentages are out the window. That's who you want on the line. Same thing with Tyshawn Taylor at that game, 67% shooter, but he's the guy I want there. T-Rob's just an absolute gamer, man. Another cool thing we can talk about, him reaching out to KJ, back when he was in school. He had a very similar tragedy happened when he was playing at Kansas. So that was also, just in this time frame of him getting his jersey retired, reaching out to KJ last week about everything. Just a great kind of homecoming for T-Rob this week.
Yeah, he's a great guy for doing that, and he's a great player, and he's given KU fans probably the number one. Like, if you think of Kansas plays, you think of David McCormick, hitting the jump hook to beat North Carolina. You think of Mario Chalmers, the shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like probably number 3 on that list is probably the Thomas Robinson block against Missouri. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's one of the most iconic KU plays of all time. And
definitely.
Every time it pops up on the video board, I'm like, yep.
That's it, bro. It's called the block. It's the block. The cleanest block maybe of all time in college basketball. I've never seen a cleaner block before. I mean, I think Frank Mason's shot against Duke, that game winner in MSG, that was a cool moment. And like I like that those plays, right? It's a good question, but it's definitely it's easily top 3 in the Bill Self era. It's probably top 10 in Allen Fieldhouse history, maybe even top 5 of like moments, right? Because you got to consider the stakes. Last game against Mizzou at home to send it to overtime.
And playing for a Big 12 crown at that time, because Mizzou had a really, really, really good team that year.
And
one of their best teams of all time.
The streak would have never taken off had we lost that game, right? The streak
true.
never really happens. The Pressey twins take that from us. Those freaking guys. God, I hate them so much. But yeah, I that's one of the all-time moments in KU basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to talk about another kind of, for me, this is one of my all-time, being a Kansas student and watching Kansas play moment. And it's another Mizzou moment. I kind of want to shout out Christian Brown real quick because, man, I don't know if you guys remember his start to the Missouri game a couple years ago, but that had 8 points and threw a lob to David McCormick in like the first 5 minutes of the game. And the tone and that game was set immediately. It was, okay, Missouri, you're back. We're kicking your ass. Like, we are kicking your ass. And of course, Tehan, I don't know if you remember this, Tehan hit the 3 to give Kansas 102 points, which was absolutely electric. So, yeah, man. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be juiced in Allen Fieldhouse. I already know it.
CB checking into that game with the biggest smile on his face. Like, you just knew. He's mouthing "it's over" to Mizzou with like 16:30 on the clock. The under 16, it was Christian Brown 8, Missouri 3. That was a score.
He was an absolute beast. A couple more just Mizzou memories that we wanted to talk about. The Natty season, the 76 to 70 win Columbia. I know you kind of want to talk about that one a little bit, Jackson. So I'll let you take the floor there.
That game was not a great Missouri team when we won the Natty, but it was a game in Columbia. Brandon Rush was 2 for 14, could not hit the side of a barn, and yet Mizzou, what's his name, Damari Carroll, played in the NBA forever. That was his worst game of his career. He was also 2 of 12, 4 points. Like that. When Mizzou's had guys, right? Mizzou's had some studs, and my favorite moments of these Mizzou games is when you take their stud and you turn him into nothing. I mean, Kansas did it again. They turn, remember Marcus Dedman? Yeah, he was 4 for 12 from the field in this game that Kansas beat him in a game where Mizzou shot under 30% from the field. Because those are road games. I'm watching in my living room. It's a school night. I'm supposed to be asleep, but I'm not. And it's just Brady Morningstar just locking up some dude from Missouri. Tyrell Reed hitting a banging 3 at the end. Oh man, those were the days, man.
You have to keep in mind, Jackson, I did not grow up a Kansas fan. I'm from St. Louis, and I don't think that I really started I think the team that kind of made me fall in love with Kansas basketball was the Devontae Frank Mason team. That was kind of the team that was like, yeah, like these guys are pretty cool. But before then, I honestly didn't really like Kansas very much.
Well, you'll see Parker Brown this game as a Kansas kid, and I can speak for this against K-State too. The games truly do mean more. I mean, because we grow up with it. I've been fighting about KU K-State since I was actually 4 years old. Same deal with Missouri. You don't grow up with a ton of Mizzou fans around here, But I went to those football games at Arrowhead. I walked out on my dad's shoulders, giving the bird to a bunch of Mizzou fans at the young age of 6.
I'm
Just
in Mizzou territory, Jackson. I'm from St. Louis area, so it's Mizzou territory there.
I hate your
I've
state.
never liked Mizzou, just saying.
I hate your state, like all of it, except for Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead Stadium. Missouri can kick rocks.
I'm from Illinois, man. I'm from Edwardsville, Illinois. It's close to St. Louis, though. So
You're like right there. You're like right there.
I'll claim St. Louis, but not Missouri. I'm not claiming Missouri.
You're from St. Louis, Illinois.
Exactly.
St. Louis, Illinois. But yeah,
all right, y'all.
This is gonna be great.
It's gonna be a great game. Kansas, Missouri, and we're gonna learn a little bit here in a second about the Missouri team with Jaden Lewis. So thank you guys for being with us and kind of recapping some of our favorite Mizzou moments. But let's hear from the guy himself. Let's hear from Jaden on this Missouri Tigers team coming right up next.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
We are back now on the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. And now joining us is our guest, Jaden Lewis, who's currently a senior at Mizzou. He writes high school prep sports for the Columbia Tribune, but he also does some Mizzou basketball and football stuff for Rock M Nation. Jaden, pleasure to have you on, man. How are we doing today? And are you excited for this big rivalry game and to come to Allen Fieldhouse?
Oh, yeah. I appreciate for you all having me on. And I'm doing great, just getting through finals week, which is always tough. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm really excited for this matchup. Knowing this rivalry, I think it's one of the best rivalries in sports. I'll just say that right now. Football and basketball, just the history of the rivalry. And for me being able to come to Lawrence on Saturday, it's just kind of like a dream come true. So I'm really excited for this matchup. Mizzou, Kansas, it can't get any better than this.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Allen Fieldhouse was rocking against UConn. It's going to be absolutely rocking again for this game against Mizzou. I know 2 years ago, whenever Mizzou came back to Allen Fieldhouse, that was one of the rowdiest games that I've been a part of. But now it's time to talk a little bit about your Missouri Tigers here. This is now year 2 of the Dennis Gates era in Columbia. I just want your thoughts on kind of what you've made of Dennis Gates, the job he's done so far, and kind of how you've seen the fans embrace him.
Well, I'm going to say from the expectations when he first got here, he's definitely exceeded those expectations for sure. He came in here last year, won 25 games. I believe it may have been the second or third most by Mizzou team this century. Won an NCAA tournament game for the first time since 2010 here at this program, while also getting the SEC semifinals for the first time. So from where it was expected to be, he's way ahead of schedule, especially with the recruiting class and all that. And this year it's been, this team's still trying to find their way. That loss to Jackson State has hurt, but, I think they're just going to be fine. So Dennis Gates, he's an awesome coach. He's a great person too, good culture builder. And I think Mizzou really has them a good one in their head coach that they have.
Now I kind of want to ask you about one of your top players this year, Sean East. It's kind of been the driving force to lead you to that 7-2 record so far. He's leading the team in scoring at 16.8 per game. He's also shooting over 60% from 3, even though it's a little bit on the smaller sample size, but can you just talk to us about him a little bit, the start he's kind of gotten off to for you guys?
It's kind of been surprising. Mizzou, they were going to need someone to step up this year. There's really going to be three guys, and that it was East, Nick Honor, and Noah Carter, especially since Kobe Brown and Demoy Hodge left. The Mizzou's really going to need a guy, and Shawnee's, he was one of those guys last year. He's kind of more of the quiet. He didn't really have to embrace a huge role within the team. But like I said, Hodge and Brownlee, someone was going to have to step up. And as you said, his shooting has improved a lot, which has been great for him. I think he has 5 20-point games so far this year, 4 or 5. So his shooting has been good. And one thing Dennis Gates challenged him in the offseason, along with kind of like Carter and Honor, is to become a better leader, be more vocal, which is something that he's kind of embraced. He's really one of those leaders of this team now. And, it's also something that I feel like he's getting very used to the system. This is the first time in his college career where he's been on the team for 2 straight years. So that means a whole bunch, and it's kind of translated to the success on the court. And he's really the main guy, and Missouri needs him going down the stretch, because when he's on, this team plays a whole lot better, of course. But if he disappears, then they're in trouble, because he, of course, is their leading scorer this year.
Another one of your leaders this year is starting forward Noah Carter. Can you just tell us what he brings? And then I also want to ask you about a guy, Connor Vanover, 7'5" transfer from Oral Roberts. First with Carter and then Vanover, and how do you think Vanover can kind of match up with Hunter Dickinson?
Well, Carter, he's a very versatile player. He can play pretty much every position. He can contribute down low. He can shoot. He's a real good 3-point shooter, and with his size and what he's able to do, he brings a lot for a team. If he's on fire, he's on fire on both ends of the court. Connor Vanover, on the other hand, he's still trying to find his way. I believe it was after when Missouri played South Carolina State or Loyola Maryland. He wasn't playing his best. Dennis Gates actually demoted him to the practice squad. And that kind of lit a fire in him, and he accepted that. He took accountability for it, and he came out against Pitt and who they just played, Wichita State, and he actually performed well in the defense. I mean, he's collecting blocks. His shot, it's still getting there. He hit a 3-pointer against Wichita State, but his size is just something that you can't ignore him being one of the biggest players in college basketball. And I really think that he's starting to heat up after he was kind of demoted. After that, I think there was the Loyola game, and they played against Pitt and Wichita State, and he's really starting like the player that Missouri wanted in him, and he can just bring it on both ends of the floor, defensive side, and him just grabbing rebounds as well.
Yeah, definitely. So both of Missouri's losses, 15-point loss to Memphis, 1-point loss to Jackson State. They lose the turnover battle, especially against Jackson State, almost turning it over 20 times. But in your key wins against Pitt, against Minnesota, Wichita State, turnovers have been held to under 10, and any head coach is going to take it when you turn the ball over less than 10 times. So how do you think that Missouri is going to be able to protect the ball against a really aggressive Kansas defense?
Well, that Jackson State game, it just seemed like Jackson State wanted it more that game. Like Gates mentioned after the game, like every loose ball, it was Jackson State coming away with it. They seemed like they wanted it more. They were playing more gritty, but it's really something that Missouri's done with their free throws. It's something that they really got to just focus in and dial in on. You'll hear the players say that, because it's just a lot of little errors that they make on there, and that's something that's not characteristic of Dennis Gates' his teams. He doesn't like to turn the ball over a lot, and these veteran ball handlers, it's kind of uncharacteristic for them at times. Like last year, turnovers wasn't that big of a deal. So it's really something they're going to have to key in on. And I think it's just one of those things where this team, again, is still meshing together and figuring out some things. So it's Kansas is it's going to be tough. That's the second ranked team in the nation. So they're really going to have to dial in on some aspects on Saturday at the Fog.
Yeah, I mean, mention Jackson State. Let's just get into it. Other than the turnovers, what happened? What was going wrong for Mizzou to lose to a team in the 260s on KenPom at home? What in the world went wrong there?
Well, I don't know because it is the SWAC. SWAC teams, they usually kind of heat up once they get in the conference play. I mean, Dennis Gates, one thing he says, he schedules teams that kind of can challenge Missouri's weaknesses, because I can expose their weaknesses. He does that. But within that game, what really hurt Mizzou at the end is it came down to free throws. They missed 3 crucial free throws. I know the game was close, but you could be talking about a whole different story if, I think it was believed Jordan Butler at the end, instead of going up for a dunk, he elects to get fouled and has to shoot 2 free throws. And as a freshman, he wasn't able to do that. Then Nick Honor uncharacteristically missed. I think they were in double bonus. He missed his first free throw. So it just came down to those final minutes. Missouri they were leading. I think they were up by as much as 4 or 5. It was a very, very uncharacteristic game. And like I said, Jackson State came in there and they were like, we know you're not going to be better than us today. You might be better, you might have more talent than us, but we're going to be more gritty than you, and we're going to get after it. So Missouri just wasn't aggressive that game. And it was kind of a wake-up call, I think, for the rest of the season. Or not the rest of the season, these past 4 games. They did start off a bit slow against South Carolina State, but it really started. I think they've learned from that, and turnovers and stuff. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to continue to trouble this team. It's just that game specifically, it just felt weird. That's not the best way I could explain it. It felt weird how Jackson State was playing and keeping it close, but
Kansas just goes had off. A couple of those games too this year where it's a lot closer than what it probably should be.
The Eastern Illinois game, I saw that game.
Man, that was weird. You said it right.
But it happens. It happens. You saw Kentucky lose an uncharacteristic game against UNC Wilmington a couple nights ago. But, it's
college
just that
basketball, man. It's college basketball.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that Mizzou has been pretty effective at this year is blocking shots. They're actually top 50 nationally in block shots, and you have 2 guys in Carter, 1.5 blocks a game, and Aiden Shaw averaging 2.2 blocks in only 16 minutes per game. What do you think kind of just makes them so effective down low, blocking shots, and just overall Missouri's team as a shot blocking team? You think that will play a factor against Kansas?
Oh, I think it will for sure. And specifically talking about Aiden Shaw, he's not going to come off, he's not going to come in there and give you, 10 to 15 points, but he's going to do everything else good. And that's kind of the role that Dennis Gates wants him to embrace. And he's really taken a step up from last year. Last year, he got into foul trouble a lot. I think he actually had 4 fouls against Wichita State, but, his defense, his length, it really impacts the game a lot. And, I think he ranks, I don't know where exactly he ranks in blocks, but this team, I think they're a lot bigger. Connor Vanover, he gets you some blocks. You said Noah Carter, and they're a better defensive team this year. But Aiden Shaw has really stepped his game up. He's actually the past 2 games been inserted to the starting lineup, and he's kind of earned that. Him and Tamar Bates, 2 Kansas guys, but yeah.
Kansas actually was recruiting Shaw pretty heavy while he was in high school.
I definitely remember.
Yeah, man. I'm kind of, because I think he was one of the Conzo's recruits, and I was kind of shocked that he ended up staying and going to Mizzou. But he's kind of taken that step forward in his He's just a sophomore, and he's kind of taken a step forward, and he's been looking all right out there, especially with in these past 2 games.
Yeah, Shaw has been huge, and another guy is Nick Honor. He's shooting around 45% from 3 this season, which is up there in the country. I believe he's in the top 15 to 20 in the country. It's easily the best clip of his career. So can you just talk about him a little bit and how he elevates the Missouri offense?
Well, one thing that Dennis Gates wanted him to do last year, and his dad kind of said this last year, is also his dad's a coach down in Florida, that they want him to shoot the ball more. That's one thing they want him to do, is shoot the ball more. And he's finally gotten that opportunity, with there being, more opportunities to shoot, because you don't have, you've lost some guys from last year. But of course, he's a leader on the court. He's a starting point guard, plays pretty much the most minutes. But he can shoot the ball well. It was kind of weird in Pittsburgh. He couldn't buy a shot. He didn't score at all, which is very uncharacteristic of him, and missed the free throw. He kind of had a little rough stretch there, but this past game against Wichita State, they came out firing from behind the arc. He's a real good shooter. He had some great shots last year against Mississippi State and Tennessee. So I'm just glad that he's able to go out there and put out what he can really do. And it's his second year with this team also, after being at Clemson. So it's just great to kind of see him come out there and perform well.
Yeah, also on the defensive side of the ball, Missouri, about a top 30 team in the country when it comes to steals per game. And then the guy I see, freshman Anthony Robinson, averaging 2 a game off the bench as a freshman is pretty impressive. So when he checks into the game, what happens to this Missouri team? And do you think that this Missouri defense is going to be a force, especially going into conference play in the SEC?
Oh, yeah, I think their defense is a lot better than it was last year, in my opinion. But Anthony Robinson, he doesn't look like a freshman when he's out there. He kind of dominates on both ends of the floor, and he doesn't back down from competition. And I think a lot of that goes with him being coached by Charlie Ward, former Heisman Trophy winner and former New York Knick. And then he came in this year and he was mentored by Nick Honor and Sean East. Missouri has a lot of veteran guards, Caleb Grill, John Tanji, all of them. And, he's a real good learner, and he's really earned that playing time. But when he's in the game, he impacts it. You'll see it on the court on both ends of the floor. He doesn't, like I said, he doesn't play like he's a freshman. He plays like he's been out there for a while, which is really good for someone at his age. But he's not afraid to attack the basket at all. He'll go up there and get some rebounds, dish out some assists. He's one of the most impressive freshmen I've seen come to Mizzou in a long time.
All right, Jaden, we have one last thing for you here. Couple keys to the game, if you could give us those, and maybe a score prediction. What do you think the final score would be in this one?
Well, Missouri's, they're going to have to come out hot, of course. They're not going to come out hot, but they're going to have to come out and match whatever Kansas gives them, in my opinion. And another thing, Shaw, whether it's Shaw, Carter, whoever, or Vanover, whenever they're in the game, shutting down Hunter Dickinson, that's going to be a tough task in its own right. And so they just got to come out confident and just not let, that road environment impact them a lot. They're going to have to play well on both ends of the floor. As a score prediction, I really want to see them come in there and win for the first time. We haven't won there since Norm Stewart was coach, his last game against Kansas in '99. So there's been some close ones. There's been some good ones. I remember the 2012 game, both of them really well. I was at the one here in Columbia. So I would love to see Mizzou come in there and get an upset. I don't think it's going to be a 25-plus blowout like the previous 2 years, but Kansas, #2 team in the nation. Teams that come into that building don't often leave with the win. So I can see Kansas winning by 7 to 10 points. I'm going to be honest with you. Like I said, I would love to see Mizzou win, but Kansas, that's a pretty good ball club. You got to give Bill Self some respect.
Yeah, Bill Self does not lose very often in Allen Fieldhouse, and yeah, he's been great so far this year. Jaden, thank you, man, for joining us on the Hum. I appreciate it. Go ahead and give Jaden a follow on Twitter. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on and talking some Mizzou hoops with us.
Yep, thank you, Lyle. You guys going to be at the game?
Yeah, we will be there. I think I will be there as a fan. So
okay,
I'll be jumping up and down, getting rowdy.
Okay, I'll try to look out for y'all. But y'all have a good one. Thanks for having me on. Y'all keep doing a good job.
Thanks, Jaden.
Thank you.
Yeah.